models to expand the college football playoff. A couple of models are suggesting that they're trying to create a 12-team playoff going forward. It has go through a few other steps. They also have to go through an 11-member committee that's responsible for the college football playoff. So basically, once they submit their plan, they're submitted to the decision makers for that. So it looks like for I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but there is a good chance that this league is going to, the college football playoff is going to expand to 12 teams. Your thoughts on it? I'm gonna go with you first, JB. Your thoughts on the college football expansion?
I mean, I've been going for this for a while, man. Like now, I do think that 12 is kind of a weird number, but I do kind of like it because, like, so here's the thing, man. When you think about the college football and when they've expanded to 4 teams, man, basically it seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like 4 teams have pretty much dominated getting spots. Alabama is one. Clemson is another one. Ohio State and Oklahoma. And I mean, like, I just don't think it's fair to other teams. I mean, you saw the debacle. I forgot what year it was when TCU had that good record and TCU was ranked number 3. And then all of a sudden they beat the mess out of somebody. It was TCU and Baylor. Chris, what year was that? I forgot what year it was.
That was TCU and Baylor, because these
was that 2015 or was that 2014? Because, man, both of those teams were
what was it? Might have been because that was before all that stuff kind of went down.
Yeah,
it might have been like, I think it might have been 15. I think it was 15.
Yeah. I think, and you mean to tell me that a team is ranked number 3, they beat somebody by 50 points, and then all of a sudden they went from number 3 to number 5? That made no sense to me, man. That kind of like really bothered me because I thought that would have been a great chance for TCU to get on the national stage. And my dad made a very good point about this too. We were talking about this earlier. When the same teams keep on getting into it over and over again, a lot of these 5-star and 4-star recruits are going to these schools because they're like, oh man, I want to be on the national stage. I want to play in a playoff game. Whereas I think it's good for, per se, like Oregon to make it. And I mean, you have a Power 5 conference. And I mean, it seems like, in my opinion, that the Pac-12 is usually disrespected a lot of times when it comes to the playoffs anyway. So, I mean, like, and then you've had other teams too, like UCF was really good one year. They were like undefeated. You've had a bunch of teams that like would have made it. And, I just want to see, because, we saw this in 2006. What happens when a mid-major goes against one of the big boys? They can go toe-to-toe with them because Boise State beat Oklahoma. And a lot of people before the year had Oklahoma winning the national championship and Boise State beat them. So I just think it's good, man. I think it'll be good for the mid-majors. Now, 12 is kind of a weird number. I would like to make it more even, like maybe make it 8 or 16 teams. But, I mean, like, I think expansion is good, though, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
Your thoughts, Maui?
I mean, I like stuff like that anyway, because you have your regular season, and then we all know, once you get to the playoffs, it's supposed to intensify. And I think even for the students, I think it'll teach them about levels. You know what I mean? Like, this is this, now this is this. So I like it as entertainment, and like, if I can't make all the regular season games, at least I can set myself up to watch the playoffs. I think it's exciting. You know what I mean? It's something new. I do have some questions for you guys, though, because I know they're trying to change the narrative. I wonder, why do you think that they even want to expand it to like 12?
Money.
It's about money, man.
Money.
Okay, so I mean, do you think they already like bringing in money and the numbers already, or you just think they feel like it's an opportunity?
Yeah, more games, more money.
Yep.
Okay.
More games, more money, and pretty much force. It's gonna be because what's gonna happen is gonna be a bidding war between ESPN, Fox, all them. I'm telling you, college football is pretty much saying, "Hey, bring me my bag. Whoever has the biggest bag, you can have rights to this."
And
do you feel? do you feel like they're doing this also because everything is starting to open up, and that 2020 season was kind of lost?
Yeah, I definitely think that definitely plays a factor in it.
And I think when you sit down and you think about it, it lends itself to having an extended, because you think about it. Normally, the conference championships was supposed to be the first weekend of December, compared to most championships were the 19th, that Saturday before Christmas. So that's a 2-week window where, and then you got to think about a lot of stuff was canceled too, because you think about like the Big Ten, they didn't start until October 24th. The ACC started on time, and I think like we look at I hate to inject Carolina in the conversation once again, but like Carolina had a situation where they missed 21 days and was still able to have a regular season that up until December. So it lends itself to it. I think, like you said, I think that's a perfect example where if you really start the season on time, like normal, like Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, then you have that flexibility where you can have your conference championship the first week of December, and then you can continue an additional round or two, a week or two after the conference championships. So I think.
Do you think that they're trying to learn from that? Because one thing I remember about with the pandemic happened, everybody was trying to necessarily get themselves to a situation so they can do the playoffs. You remember that? Like baseball, and everybody was like, well, just let us get here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we can go ahead and we can just focus on that. You know what I mean? But that's really what my question is, because I'm like, I don't really watch college football like I probably should. But when I do, and it was always they need a playoff. They was always complaining about these people being ranked number one. There was always these different scenarios, and then people be pissed off. And I'm like, well, why don't you have a playoff? We all know that. Even when they were playing in high school, you should have a playoff. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and I think they know now, like, this is such a great opportunity to have it. But I think my thing is the 12, like you said, I'm agreeing with you, JP, where the 12 is a little bit steep, because I think if you do 12, I think that's going to ultimately cheapen the regular season in essence, because it's almost like you're going to let everybody in, because you think about, because now I'm telling you, regardless of how we feel, and I know we talked about the mid majors, but they're going to be screwed again, because what's going to end up happening.
Yeah, probably.
You're going to have 2 or 3 SEC teams in that 12 team field. And I mean, it's going to lend itself to some craziness. I said at one time I was thinking maybe 6, and then the first 2 seeds get like a bye week or something of that type of nature. Almost kind of like how the NFL wild card used to be, where you used to have the 6 teams and the 2 teams have a bye. So that kind of still gives an incentive to win your conference championship. And I think that's been the biggest issue. Where now, if you expand it, you just gonna have multiple tiers of these teams playing. Which, example, you had Alabama and Florida playing last year in the SEC championship. Both of them would make it, and they probably would be high seeds in both of those matchups. But then also, and I look at like in the mid-major perspective in your course, what you were saying, JB, but I look at like Coastal Carolina and BYU as kind of like an elimination game last year, where even though that was not planned, that was a situation where I don't know what happened with Coastal Carolina's opponent, but I think they couldn't play or something. I forgot who they were supposed to play, but BYU stepped in 48 hours before that game. That to me was like the spot to make the playoffs, but like I definitely think it should expand. But 12 is excessive. I think 12 is gonna get to a point where then I think you're gonna.
Well, how about this? If you do 12, put a cap on how many teams can come out of a conference. That's my thing. That's what I would say. Like, okay, like only 2 teams can come out of a conference would be what I would say. Like, yeah.
And that's the thing. Would that be the stick? And that in a perfect world, that would make total sense. But I couldn't imagine like you telling that one of these commissioners this because we know how it is. That's a great idea. Yeah. You hope that they can agree to that, but I couldn't imagine like the SEC saying, "Oh, we'll agree to that." Because
I know. But it comes down to greed, man, because SEC as well, we'll get more money, yada yada yada. But I get what you're saying. I think that there are pros and cons, and I can see sticking points to each one. But I definitely think that these mid majors are underrepresented. I think that they're seen as kind of jokes. And I mean, you've seen Boise State go toe to toe with the big boys before. You've seen some of these mid majors when they have good teams go toe to toe, and they will go to some of these Power 5 conference teams. So I think one of the big things that I've always heard from the people from the Big Ten, they couldn't beat some of our mid-tier teams. And you've seen mid-majors go on the road to some of these mid-tier, mid-major, these power conferences and beat the hell out of the team. So that's not true anymore. So I mean, give these guys a shot,
Right.
And that's the issue. Yeah. That's the issue. And I think a lot of people starting to talk about that, man. Everybody should have an opportunity. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody, in some type of way. And even if the ACC say that, come on, man. It's better for the sport. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. Is we trying to figure out what's better for the sport. If you the ACC, you the top dog of this, and that, but you need to do what you need to do to be the top two in the top two. You know what I mean?
And that's another thing. Yeah. And that's another thing, too, where you look at. And that's another thing too, because when you sit down and you really think about it, because the SEC could have probably yielded 3 teams seriously, like Texas A&M, Florida, and Alabama this year.
Yeah,
because they both all made it to a New Year's Six bowl. But that's the thing and then you look at it, it's weird because even though I'm an ACC guy, but we know there's a huge drop between Clemson and everybody else. Carolina's kind of getting there. They're widening the gap. Miami, those type teams, they're kind of widening the gap. But, that's one thing, too, where you just look at it from a standpoint of, it makes sense. It does make sense to expand it. But like we talked about earlier, that 12 is just expansive. Because even if you think about it, if you do the 2 teams in each conference, which in theory makes sense too, because basically you're gonna put whoever pretty much is gonna be the 2 teams who made the conference championships are gonna be those ones that's filling those 10 slots, and then the 2 are gonna be like your wild cards. Maybe you have a Cincinnati, or maybe just using last year, Coastal Carolina. Yeah. Which now that that lends itself to that type of possibility where that could potentially happen. And I think probably they're going to do the 10, do the 12. But like I said, even to your point, JB, it's got to be a cap. It has to be a cap. Yeah, if I'm telling you, even if the SEC commissioner gonna have some hell, pretty much you're not leaving this room until we agree to the 2 teams because I'm telling you that's gonna be the biggest issue.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna cry on decision day and they're gonna piss. They're gonna be so pissed and bitch about this the whole winter. About we only got 2 teams in.
Well, and you don't want it to turn into the SEC Invitational. And I think that's the thing too. But I just think that teams like Cincinnati had a hell of a year last year. They weren't even taken seriously. How can you be undefeated and then there were teams that had 2 losses that were ranked ahead of Cincinnati? To me, that's just a joke right there. That's a joke right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they almost beat Georgia.
Oh yeah, I know they did. I know they did.
They almost beat Georgia.
Yeah, and so I don't want to hear that Cincinnati can't play with so and so. Why did they almost beat Georgia if that's the case?
Right, and that's what I said. Let's figure it out on the big stage, not on just a second tier New Year's Day bowl. Let's add this and actually make it meaningful.
Right, and think about it, man. Like you said, they almost beat Georgia, and then they in the playoffs, and then that game comes up again. Yeah. And if they know that Cincinnati sitting there like, man, we almost beat them. I know we can beat them. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. I'm excited. I'm ready to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you never know, like let's just say there's a guy from like Ohio or Michigan, like the University of Michigan, Michigan State, maybe it's not giving him any, like, they're just like, oh well, we might give you a scholarship, but he sees Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati's like, oh well, we'll give you a full scholarship, and we see you as a future player. That could be instrumental in getting a couple of kids who might go, that might just be middling players like at a Power 5 conference to go to Cincinnati. And I think that would be good, actually.
And I think with this too, it'll be more it'll eventually get balanced, because if they do this, and a lot of people are not just going to want to go to the ACC, they're going to say, well, shit, I think I can go here. They give me a full scholarship, and their team most likely with me, we most likely get a chance to get into the playoffs, because everybody, I'm telling you, regardless, even if I'm just sitting here thinking from a marketing standpoint, if you don't watch college football all year, you're going to watch the playoffs. You're going if it's 12, especially if it's 12 teams, you're going to do that. It's going to be everybody's going to make money all around. You know what I mean? I'm excited. I hope they do. I'm excited.
Yeah, and actually 2 other points before we move forward. The transfer portal. I think that's definitely going to help tremendously for that, because you look at like Alabama and you think about like all these Power 5, these major schools like Clemson, Alabama, the ones like we say that always make the college football playoff. If you just sitting on the bench, it might lend yourself, hey, maybe I go down the road to Auburn. Maybe I go down the road to, UNC. Maybe I go, from Ohio State, maybe I go down the road and play at Bowling Green or Cincinnati. Like, it lends itself to that particular opportunity. But in a selfish way, too, man, this would be great, because this would be something that probably going to be starting around right before Christmas. It's going to trickle down into, like, New Year's. And that's like I'm hoping, and one thing I hope that this does happen, that we have New Year's Eve games. I love that first year, and everybody said, well, we don't like it because, I got to be with my wife or my girlfriend or my significant other. And I'm thinking to myself, what they got to do with single guys who like sports? That has nothing to do with us. That has nothing to do with you. You need to plan accordingly. Like that, people used to be saying, oh, well, my wife wants me to go to some New Year's Eve party. It's a TV there.
I know, man. Smartphones, man. You can stream the stuff, man. That's what I was doing last night, man. Like, hey, man, it's not my fault that you took on that commitment.
New Year's at the sports bar. You know what I'm saying? Now everybody's starting to open up. They watching the games. Being at the colleges too. Like, man, it's I just think that. And then like, man, like it's slots open, because it's a lot of stuff on TV. Like, really, network TV don't know what to do. It's sad. They really don't. You know what I mean? They're so lost, and there's slots open for those type of games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think the old narrative is they're trying to change it too. They're trying to get rid of that old narrative and start something new. So, you know what I mean? Don't get left behind like y'all have been.
Yeah, exactly. So, fellas, let's talk about Julio Jones. So, Julio Jones was traded to the Tennessee Titans. Atlanta received a 2nd-round pick in 2022 and then a 4th round in 2023. JB, your thoughts on Julio Jones in Nashville?